Good morning and welcome to the Growth Mindset Show. Today we are here going to talk about startups. If you are joining us first time, welcome to the show. If you are coming back, if you are our frequent listener, welcome back to the show. My name is Mahesh Chand. I'm founder of CSharpCorner. This show, Growth Mindset, we have every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern every Friday. We talk about different topics, mostly focused around growth mindset. We talk about success. We talk about motivation. We talk about teamwork and anything else. Here I'm in Philadelphia. It's a little cloudy today. Maybe a little bit rain drizzling. I'm sure you guys joining us from different parts of the world. I see some people joining us from India, joining us from Europe. I have a few people joining us here from US as well. Welcome, John, Atul. Welcome to the show. I see you guys coming back. So back to one thing, I want to make sure everybody understand who's joining us first time. This show is for you. We want to make sure by the time you're done with this, today's 1 hour, you learn something today. Learn something. If you have any questions, just ask your questions. Questions can be anything, even though today we are focusing on startups, but questions can be about jobs, question can be about career. Um, so yeah, just any questions you have, just start posting those questions in the comments. And if you like the show, you want to tell your friends about it, go ahead and share on social media and let them know. If anybody is involved in startups, if they are trying to build their own product, they're trying to having raise money, anything about startups today, just let them know. Um, yeah, so let's get going. What I will do is today we're gonna change a little bit format. Today I'm going to share some screens. First I'm going to run through the startups, what a startup means, what are the different parts of a startup. If you if you joined our startup conference last couple of weeks ago, we covered some of those topics there, but I will just quickly run through those topics. And then in the second half of the show, we are going to have a guest. I hope you guys can hear me just fine. May, you think you hear me just fine? Voice, sound, everything good?
Sorry,
Okay.
I was on mute. I said
Okay.
you're loud and clear.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So we are, C Sharp Corner. If you guys are involved in C Sharp Corner or know a little bit about C Sharp Corner is a global community. We are in different parts of the world. We have here headquarters here in Philadelphia um, area, and then we have some people in Europe, some people are India as we have a lot of people working there in India as well. So yeah, we are everywhere. Anurag, welcome to the show. I see a lot of people are coming back, joining us back. So welcome to the Growth Mindset Show. Today we are going to talk about startups. So let me get going, right? I'm going to share my screen first and just run through some um, phases of a startup. If you are trying to have build your own startup, or you are a part of a startup, or you are a team in a startup, all those things we will cover today. So let me share my screen. Let me play this, and then we will go slideshow here. So little background why I'm talking about a startup. I am very passionate about when talking about a startup because I have been involved in a startup for several years. I am part of startups still. I have my own startups I started. I'm advisor on startups. I also mentor startups. So this topic is very kind of fun to me. I like to talk about it, and basically tell guys, what are the things I learned over 20 years of working with startups. So one thing I want to start with is there is no right or wrong time with the startup, and especially right now, we are a lot of us are stuck with the during this COVID times. We're stuck at home, so we have more time. If you are thinking or you have been thinking for a while about a startup, doing your own something, you have an idea and you want to build something, maybe this is the right time. Again, if you have any questions, we will cover the questions once my presentation is done. So feel free to, any kind of questions you have, just ask. Um, as I said, my name is Mahesh Chand. These are some of the startups I have been part of them, and there's more. This is old slide, but point I'm making is that I have been part of startups for a long time in all the phases, not just building the product. So let's talk about some of the fun facts about startups. 9 out of 10 startups fail. So let's start with that fact. Not every startup is as successful, and that's very important part. So when you think of doing your own startup, is like definitely it's like starting your own business, right? And when you start your own business, you have to all assume in the beginning that chances are there are chances it will fail. So are you ready for that? Are you ready to spend months of your time and money, and then if it fails, that's very important. um, then the startups with more than one founder is are more likely to be successful, and the reason is simple, that multiple people with multiple background, with multiple expertise, are more likely to go far along. And 82% of startups are self-funded in the beginning. So these are some of the fun facts I want to start with. Now, why these are the top reasons why 9 out of 10 startups fail. Like, first thing is no market needs. Means you may think it's a cool idea, but guess what, market doesn't need it. There's not enough customers. I have been part of several startups like that, where we thought it's a great idea, we thought people are just waiting for it. When we launch it, there was no market need. Sometimes you can run out of cash, you're unable to raise money, because when you have startups, depending on how many people you hire and work, there's always this, startups don't make money for a while. So you need to have enough money to pay the bills, to keep building the product, to the marketing, and so on and so forth. And then one other big aspect is not the right team, right? A team can also be responsible for breaking or making the startup. If you have people who are fighting each other, if you have multiple founders, co-founders, they're not on the same page, that may also affect the startup. So all those combined, as you can see, um, there can be multiple factors affect the startup. Sometimes startups are not enough innovative, means there are similar startups, or there are competitors out there, they are more innovative, they are moving fast, and then you're behind. Like, take an example, Yahoo, right? Take example of previous a lot of startup, they failed because they were unable to innovate or fast enough to innovate. um, you can also have a poor product, means when you launch it, people like it and they are using it, but then your product is not supporting, or there are issues and problems, people may leave that. Or you could have a poor marketing. These are some of the top reasons why startups fail. There may be other reasons as well, but these are top 6 in my list. um, then these are my personal from my personal experiences, experience working with several startups over time. These are the some things I want to really focus on why startups fail. And one of the reason I see is that I see friends and people I'm involved in startups, and they make startup their second priority. What does that mean? Means they have other things important, personal things, or maybe job, or they want to have more fun or time more for family. If you make your startup as a second priority, chances are it's going to fail. This is this is the fact. Startup needs to be your first priority. If you want to build a successful startup, that has to be your first priority. Startup is like a newborn baby. You have to give it 24/7. It's not like 8 to 5 job. um, I remember we launched a startup in India, and then one in here in Philadelphia as well. And then the guys who were running it, they're like, they were working like 8 to 5. When it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, they're like home and it's shut down. Startups don't work that way. Most startups, unless your startup is like a service startup where you don't have customers 8 to 5, but it will be hard to treat it like a 8 to 5 job. It's a 24/7 job. So if you are not made for that, startup is not for you. Um, you you can choose a wrong technology. I have seen startups, they fail. Like some companies I've seen, they launch an app, but for example, app was done not a native, and it wasn't good enough, or it didn't support enough people, or the features they had didn't work right. So that could be one of the reasons as well. Third important reason, which I see again and again and again, is that startups are unable to raise funds on time. And this could be multiple reasons, like either nobody's interested, or they're asking for too much money, or there's some legal disputes, and so on and so forth. So that could be another reason that you are unable to raise funds. Startup is going to suffer. um, Marketing strategy is very important as well. You build the product, and you are 24/7 dedicated to your startup, and you have raised a lot of money, but you just don't know how to market it. What is the best way to market it? Sometimes, I know one of my startups, we spent so much time, not only time, so much money on marketing, and it didn't work. We just didn't have a good marketing strategy. And then last thing is, sometimes startups, if you look at any company, they started a different model and they end up changing it. You can take any example. You can take example of even Amazon. Companies like Amazon, they started as selling used books. Amazon was starting selling used books online, and now look at them, they are the biggest cloud company out there. So you have to pivot. Pivot means when you launch your startup, you talk to your customers, see what their needs are, and how do you are, all that thing has to go as a part of this. So again, hopefully you guys learning something. Today we are talking about startups in this growth mindset. So we're talking about different parts of the startups, not in any particular order. So if your goal is really just run through these, and then any questions you have, just go ahead and post your questions, and we'll take your questions from there. It's 1 hour show. First 30 minutes I'll be here. Then on second half we have a guest, Alan O'Neill, coming, and he has also a lot of experience working with startups. So we're going to talk about different things as well. So let's go back. So you have an idea, right? A startup is really building an idea, turning into a product, and eventually into a company, a profitable company. Startup, I don't consider that as a startup, that, oh, let me start a blog website and it's a free and where it will help people learn something. That's not really startup. Startup means you have an idea, you have some customer, you're going to serve some customers or users, and it's going to make money, and it's going to be profitable, right? That's what it is all about. And not only is just a profitable, it's just a big business. It's going to change the way things work. It's a revolutionary, right? If you are just saying, okay, let me start my own consulting company and I'll hire two people, that's not really startup. That's just a lifestyle business. So let's go back, and again go back to your, you have this idea. You want to build that, turn into, let's say you have idea for an app where you will do online, tutoring, or online video conferencing like Zoom, doesn't matter. So you need to ask your question, is that your idea unique? Means, are there anybody else have building same thing, or is any product already out there? You have to do that, and you have to do a little bit research on that before you go and run with it 100%. Like, yeah, I'm good to go, I'm going to spend my time, I'm going to quit my job, or I'm going to put money, or I'm going to take a loan, and so on and so forth. So think about this, that do your research and find out, is your idea unique? If it's not unique, how is your idea better than others that's already out there? Chances are, if you're trying to build something, somebody probably already built that. If that's the case, why is your better? Like if you are building a, say, next Facebook, why people will leave current Facebook and join this new app? You need to think about that. You have to do feasibility analysis, like is it really feasible to even build? Like I know I have a friend, couple of friends, and they talk about all these ideas, like, oh, what if we build a, think of like, what if we build a, you know drone where they'll take you from A to B, A to Z. Well, sure, we can, but guess what? It's going to cost you hundreds of millions of dollars. So, idea has to be feasible. Like how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take to build, how many people you need to get this going on, and how, where you're going to have the office. You need to, if you need an office, where you're going to get funding from. So feasibility has to be already part of the discussions in the part of your team meetings before even you start, get it seriously. Then now you already validated your idea. You know that, yeah, it may not be a unique, but it's pretty good idea because nobody else is doing that. You have done the feasibility analysis. You know what, we're going to launch in 6 months. We have enough funds already for this. Now you got to make sure you also validate it, right? Sorry, yeah, you didn't validate yet, right? Validation comes is that you have this idea, you know that you have money for it, you have time for it. You want to go now, start talking to your friends, family, co-workers, and somebody who, even your mentor and advisor, say, hey, I have this idea and I think I'm going to take 6 months, put 6 months on it, I have this much money I'm going to spend on it, what do you think? And when you validate that, it's, you don't want to ask people who always support you because they're not really going to help you big time. You want to ask somebody who can truly look at it and be honest with you. Okay, that person has to be clearly say that, well, this is a great idea, but these are the challenges, these are the problems you will run into, and that's how you validate it. And then some people say, yeah, I don't like it and this is the reason. Then you need to figure that out, right? And then okay, let me see if I can move this guy. So then next phase in a startup, so now you have idea, you're already good to go. You know what, I'm going to go good with it, I have already validated my idea and I think this is it, I'm going to do it. Now you need to then think about, you need to protect your startup idea. Basically you need to protect it, and there are different ways and different phases of protection. If you want to know more about protecting this, on CSharpCorner videos or YouTube, there's a 1 hour session just on that. At our conference, this startup conference, we had 1 hour session just on how to protect your idea. That included trademarks, included how to register a company, what types of company, NDA or not NDA, you need to file patents, how to protect your intellectual property, and then how do you get founder insurance, and so on and so forth. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on that, because if you want to learn more on this, you can either ask your question in comments so we can discuss on that, or you can even go watch that video. Now, so you have already validated your idea, you're good to go, you already protected your idea. Now time comes to building your MVP, minimum viable product. Minimum, it's not minimal, spelling is wrong here, it's a minimum viable product. So the reason of minimum viable product is you have to make sure it's fast as and cheap as. You don't want to spend too much time, you don't want to spend too much money on that. You take that MVP and then show it to people, right? You want to start showing to people, say you like, get their feedback, because that's your first story, if it's going to be successful or not, to give it to few people and see how they like it, what they like, what they don't like. That's how you have to go with it. Then make sure when you hire a team, they all have to be a startup mindset team. This is very important. If you hire a developer in your startup and he's more like 8 to 5, chances are that's not good for the entire startup. Okay. And then you need to engage early adopters, people who really, I don't just launch it to a big market right away. Ideally what you want to do is Let's your app is ready, it's good to go. Try to launch to a smaller market, small, say 100 people, 50 people. They are your early adapters. They are real users. They're paying you if they were supposed to pay, but what they are very smaller number of audience. So you can watch, reach out to them, ask them, and make sure that they are happy with it before you go and launch and announce on publicly that we launched this startup and so on and so forth. So you make sure that you have this very smaller audience. They're called early adapters. And then, look at them, ask them and what they problems they're having, how you can improve them, adapt and pivot. And it has to be quick turnaround, right? If you give this app, your idea and your product to 100 people, and they're taking 2 months to give you feedback, and you're taking 6 months to rebuild and fix it and all that, it's too long. It has to be quick turnaround. It has to be in the weeks, within weeks, right? After weeks, just give them back and say now they like it. Once your whole group is happy, then you should go and try to launch it to the next level. Again, don't go public right away. These are called soft launches, okay? You can have a soft launch, you can have a really private launch. Private launch is your early adapters. Then you can have a soft launch, means a smaller group of people, maybe a few thousand, right? And then you say publicly. So that's how you have to kind of break it down. How do you raise funds for a startup? As I said, a majority of startups, they start with their own personal funding. That's how they start. They put their own money in the beginning. If you say, oh, I'm not going to put any money my own, and you don't have a team and you don't have a product, it'll be, chances are investors are not going to give you money right away. They have to see something that you already have some money spent in it. You have your skin in the game. Initially, sometimes I see a lot of startup, they get money from friends and family. Family and friends and family are one, usually family. If you have wealthy parents, or uncles or whoever, they believe in you and they like you, they are most likely to give you money in the beginning. And then some friends may like your idea, they believe in you, then they will give you money. So that's how you get your first early money, either your personal money, from your personal savings or whatever you have, or friends and family around. Once you take the money, hopefully your goal should be that you build MVP and have your early adapters before even actually you go to any investor. That's ideal. You're more likely to raise funds like that than just go with an idea and talk to investors. You're just going to waste your time. Then there's different types of investors. Angel investors are the one, they come early, give you a smaller amount of money. Then you have VCs are the one, they give you a lot of money. And then you have public offering, means you go to IPO and so on and so forth. um, then there's a term here called smart money versus dumb money, right? Smart money is that somebody, you're raising money from an investor who is not only going to give you the money, but they're also going to help you grow the business. So if you ever watch Shark Tank is a smart money, because all the investors on Shark Tank, they invest in companies where they believe that they can take the company and introduce that product to their existing customers. So that becomes a smart money, right? They're also helping you getting more money. They're helping you get right people, connected to right people. They're getting your partnerships in line and so on and so forth. um, so then you got to build a go-to marketing strategy, and I highly recommend, if you have product ready, you're all good to go, you have already tested, then you're gonna go to market strategy. You got to make sure that you hire somebody who's experienced. You hire somebody, or advisor or consultant, that who has done that before. Otherwise, you may end up doing a lot of things by yourself. It's going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of money, and you may not have a traction what you're looking for. So you start with early adopters, as I said, and then you go with social media marketing is again growing. That's another one. You can have a newsletter, email marketing, content marketing, brand. So these are different types of marketing stages for a startup. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on that, because my goal is to answer your questions. So if you have any questions around any of these topics, go ahead and start posting your questions. And then so that covers the my part of this startup discussions today. And then what we will do is we have 4 more minutes, so we're going to take 2 more minutes, and then we will go and start opening up, question and answers, and we're going to have a guest on the show as well. So um, back to this startups, right? So if you are one of them who are thinking about starting your own startup or joining a startup or being a co-founder of a startup, you don't know where to start, that's all we're talking about today. But if you're joining us again, I see a lot of new guys join. Welcome to the show, guys. Today we're talking about startups, but you can also ask other questions as well. So if we have more time, we will take care. We'll do some. We'll take other questions as well. So, do we have any questions so far? Good morning, guys. You want to take question? What makes a product or idea feasible? So yeah, that's a very important question and really good question. Feasibility. You need to make sure you do feasibility analysis because feasibility includes several parts, right? Um, First thing you need to ask is this: do you have time for the startup? As I said, startup needs 24/7 time. You cannot say, "Oh, well, I can't work because I have to take a vacation." Oh, well, I can't because I need to go to bed every day at 10 p.m. Well, startups are they don't work like that really. Really, most startups they need to be at least in the first few years, a year or two, they need 24/7. So feasibility comes to your: do you have time? Do you have money? And let's say, yeah, now you have money, but then are you picking the right technology that's not going to cost you 10 times than what your budget is? So that's part of feasibility. Are you hiring the team that's not going to cost you more than what amount you have, and what time you're thinking? So if you're trying to launch your product in 3 months, can that team is working or hiring deliver that in 3 months? If your budget is $50,000, can you do that all that in $50,000? Once you launch, build and launch it, and say put on a cloud, is the cloud cost is not going to be more than you already have allocated for that? So they all come as a part of feasibility analysis, and you want to make sure, if you are not the right guy, you want to make sure you know somebody who's part of the team or advising you to make sure you have done that feasibility analysis. And feasibility is not just for a startup. It's building any products, building any software. That's pretty much a part of the whole development life cycle. Is you want to make sure that you're not going over budget, over time, and your team is committed. You're not picking a technology where you don't even understand. So I think let's take a break. We are at almost nine. We have 10:29. Let's take 1 minute break, and then after the break, what we will do is we will hopefully have our guest joining us, and then we'll take more questions and we'll talk about some other things, other startups I have worked on. I'll share some of my startup stories. What are the reasons fail. So let's take 1 minute break. We will be right back.
Here at Mindcracker, we create artificial, virtual, and mixed reality games and apps, voice-enabled skills and apps, and intelligent apps, and integrate AI with IoT products. We offer advisory services for innovations and startups. We provide cloud and code security and performance services. We also offer AI/ML blockchain development, consulting, and training. Just visit www.mindcracker.us to make your dreams into a reality. COVID makes us feel like this, and work from home like this. But what if work looked like this? With a leader like this, and a payday that feels like this. Learn how to change your mind and your mindset with the Growth Mindset Show every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's get our guest Alan in the show.
Hello.
Hey, Alan. Good morning.
How are you? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon there in UK,
At the
right?
moment, it is freezing cold Southern Ireland.
Oh,
So we are the next stop on the Atlantic pond across from you guys right now.
oh wow, yeah. It's not fun. Cold is not fun for me.
Well,
I'm not a big fan.
yeah, I prefer the heat, but the cold has its advantages um, in that you get to put a nice warm fire on,
Yeah, there you go. There you
and
go. That's
that's
yeah,
kind of nice. So yeah,
yeah. Well, welcome to the show. And as you know, we are today talking about startups. So you want to first start with a little bit your involvement with the startup, what do you do with the startups and a little bit experience, and then we will just goal is really answer more questions. Guys are watching, listening, just any questions they have they can ask and post their questions.
sure. So uh, I actually went to build my first startup, I think, when I was 14.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And
Um,
now you're 34, so it's like 24 years ago,
I
20 years
wish,
ago.
yeah. 21 today, right? So they always say that the best startups are born from pain, and this one certainly was. I was riding my bicycle, and the standard seat that came with the bicycle when I was 14, back in the 1980s, it wasn't very comfortable. It was kind of hard and very pointy, and frankly, it was a pain in the ass, right? So I decided to go and design a better bicycle seat. And the one that I designed was, it was ergonomic, so it would, nice curves on it, and it would sit underneath your buttocks. But the cool feature, the innovative feature, was that it was going to be filled with air. Okay, and the idea was is that as your legs moved on the bike,
Yeah,
unsupported leg would the bum, the seat will kind of push up and support your butt. Okay,
yeah.
and that was really cool. And um, uh, I went off and I developed all sorts of prototypes at 14, right?
Wow.
And tried to convince friends and families and everything else that this was going to, make the millions and everything else. And it never really took off, and it never happened. And the reason was the first big lesson that I learned in the startup business, which is simply that just because you have what seems to be a cool idea does not mean that you can make a business out of it. An idea does not equal a business. A business is what is meant to come out of your idea. And if you have a cool idea and you're unable to execute that and get people to pay money for it, well, then it's not a business; it's a hobby. It's that
Yeah.
simple, you know.
And
Um,
that's it. Yeah, that's a good point because I run into a lot of these startup founders, so called. They call them startup founders, entrepreneurs, and what they do is they start as a part hobby, and they're still continuing with their job, and then they just don't. They're not dedicated. They're taking their vacation. They are taking by their business. They're going to kids, soccer games, and then there's on this side there's this hobby going on. So
mhm.
we should definitely, my one point was that startups don't really go anywhere like that. They just become a hobby.
And that's a really interesting point because um, uh, when you have an idea and you put that idea out there, especially in the technology area, and it's very easy to get traction or to see what kind of response you get from the public very quickly. Either get traction or you don't. And you can also see if this is going to be what's called a lifestyle business or if it's a growth business. And a lifestyle business is one that you can do by yourself or maybe with a handful of others. And you can have a very comfortable lifestyle. It'll pay your bills, it'll pay your mortgage, it'll buy you 2 or 3 holidays during the year, and you have a great life. And that's absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
On the other hand, if you want to take your idea and you want to really grow it, so you want to say, well, actually, I want this business to make 10 million a year or 100 million or, more. And I'm not talking about rupees, I'm talking about dollars, right? So you want to make it a serious big business. Then you've got to be more professional about it, and you've got to be more dedicated to it. Now, it's also the case that many folk have started out something just to test it on the side as this, part-time thing, and they're taking their holidays and everything else. And then over time, they convert it to their full-time business, and it's a lifestyle business. Or some of them, it becomes a lifestyle business, and then they realize, hey, if I actually got even more serious about this, I could build it into something more, and I can have a much bigger business and bring on investors and all that kind of stuff. And then another approach is folks say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bootstrap this along. So I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to use maybe some extra money or some extra earnings that I have to do this on a low scale, on a small scale, and see if I can prove it and if I can get some traction. And if I can do that, then I'll go and I will get some big investment in, and I will go and do my startup and everything else. So the message there is that, yes, while every idea does not become a business, sometimes you're actually better off, depending on what you're doing, staying safe until you have some kind of traction that shows that your idea can be a business, and then jump out. So don't make the stupid mistake as well of saying, oh, I've got this awesome idea, and then just jumping out before you validate that idea. You've got to make sure that you've got some validation of this idea that it can become a business before you actually make that jump. And that's really critical.
So yeah, you said bootstrapping, right? And that's a good word. It's a word we use all the time in the startup world, is bootstrapping. So bootstrapping, if you guys, as Ellen said, it's basically you're trying to work on the side by side, or you have money, you're trying to put your money in the business and continue doing so you don't take money from anybody else.
Yeah.
And then you said definitely a lifestyle business versus disruptive businesses. For me, I don't consider lifestyle business as a startup. They're just whatever businesses, right? So when I'm talking about startups, my goal is really, startup means something that's disrupting the industry, that's just going to become a multi-million dollar industry. So we are really talking about here not starting your own business like consulting, right? You have your consulting business, I have my consulting business. We started those even though they were startups, kind of, but now they're lifestyle business. As you said, it's just good life. They give us clients, we make money, pays the bills, we can hire people, and so on and so forth. Yep.
And the interesting thing about consulting business, or what we call service, because a service or a consulting business it's totally built on the ability of you to be able to deliver something custom on request to somebody else. So they want a particular thing for them, and you deliver it. They want some specific software developed. They want you to go and do some research, whatever it happens to be. You do that and you deliver it, okay? But the problem is that the scalability of that business is always constrained by the amount of man hours or person hours that you are able to sell and that you have a capacity for. So if you only have 10 developers, let's say, in your organization, well, then the amount of work that you can take on is limited to the amount of work that then 10 developers can do. So you can never grow beyond this. All you can do is keep adding more developers, right?
Yeah.
And every single time you're just doing custom stuff. And the maximum that you're ever going to grow to is always going to be a ratio. It's always going to be a percentage of the number of developers that you have, the number of hours they have available. That will dictate the amount of turnover or profit you're going to make in a year. That's it. It'll never go anymore. And it's always an upward curve, and it's linear, right? So the amount of numbers that you have depends on the amount of output hours. It's that simple. And this is why you never see, you always see consultancy companies grow slowly, because they can't grow fast because they have to build it up this way. It's by the hour, and they have to have enough of a backlog of business there to keep those developers busy into the future, et cetera, et cetera. And there's always that risk of, if we don't get enough business, well, then we can't pay the salaries next week. And that's kind of critical, right? On the other hand, you have the type of a startup that's not a consulting startup. And I think this is the one that we're focusing on here, is where somebody says, okay, what I really want is, I don't want to be constrained by my time that I can give to this thing. I want to develop a something. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a magic bicycle seat or whether it's a super piece of software, okay? I want to develop this thing so that when I go to sleep, it's still making me money. When I go to sleep, it's still making me money. And that is the key to growth. That is the key to growth. Having something that when you are asleep, it's still making you money. And it must be able to make you money exponentially. This means that if you say, I have this product here, well, you shouldn't need to customize that product for every single customer. It should be like a cookie cutter. You go cookie, 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 sell, sell, sell. Everybody gets the same thing. Now, that's not to say that you can't, of course, have little custom things built in, like this is the background color I want, and I want a skin on my software and all that good stuff. Or I want to depend on the firmness that goes into my bottom with my bicycle seat, okay? You can have those types of custom features, but it's still the same core product. And that's absolutely key when you're starting up, is to focus on making sure that your thing is repeatable and scalable. And that's very much part as well, I think, of the overall message, even of growth mindset, is that whenever you're thinking about growth for your company, for yourself, for your environment, for everybody around you, it should be, how can I stop repeating that thing? How can I automate that thing? How can I make sure that that thing is not costing me time and money every time, but I can actually automate it, repeat it, and make it work for me?
Yeah, well said, well said. So there's two, and I can put in perspective so some folks watching, they can relate. Is, for example, any company you see consulting where they place people, for example, TCS and all that, these are consulting companies. And keep in mind, there's a major fixed cost in consulting companies. Regardless of a company has a project or not, client or not, they still have to pay the salaries of employees, the office rents, and all the fixed costs. They still have to pay that. So that business is very hard to scale, and it takes years and years. And even to get the project, you have to have a sales team, you have to have marketing, you have to have so many other people involved. And usually margins in consultings are, they're, whatever, 15 to 30% or whatever. But that's not something overnight that grows and become big. On the other hand, if you look at Azure Cloud, AWS, they are like a scalable business. Any client, anybody can go today. All of you guys, I'm sure you can go today, sign up for Azure, buy a couple of SQL Server and app services and so on and so forth. There's no physical person sitting there customizing. It's all scalable. It's all done automated. So that's the difference between a growth startup and a fixed kind of lifestyle business, so that guys can relate.
There's another interesting thing just in what you said there, and again, it's the growth mindset, and it's the how can I automate? How can I squeeze out that last little thing that's going to optimize? Because I'm sure a lot of folk that are watching this, they're engineers, right? I mean, we're engineers. We love engineering. That's what we do. It's awesome, right? And on my gravestone, I just want Alan, engineer. That's it, okay? Because it explains everything. It explains my entire life and my death. Engineer. So in any case, if you even look at the cloud, right? And you look back years ago and you say, okay, so what do we have? We started out and you'd have a server and you'd put your stuff onto it, and that was great, okay? So you had a server and you had this piece of software running on it. And but you realize then it cost you to have that server and the upfront cost of buying it and everything else. So someone clever came along and said, well, why don't we host those servers? And what we'll do is we'll break them down and we'll do these virtual machine things, and we can share these virtual machines. But the problem was, with a virtual machine, you could only get so many virtual machines onto one box, right? So you're restricted by the amount of virtual machines that you can put onto a box. And then somebody else came along and said, and even when you had that one virtual machine, you still weren't using it to its maximum. Okay. So somebody else came along and said, oh, how about if instead of these virtual machines, what we do instead is we create these things called containers, and we isolate these different parts of the virtue of the actual machine, so that we can use every single spare inch of that thing. And that's exactly the same thing. You don't always in your growth plans, in your startup, you don't always have to invent something that is bang completely new. Okay, because not everybody needs that amazing toilet or seat on their bicycle. Okay, instead you can make incremental improvements. And if you look at how we went from virtual machines to, or sorry, from shared machines to virtual machines to containers, and then the services around containers and everything else, that's pure incremental, but it's still growth. And it's still people saying all the time, how can I get another little piece out of that? How can I improve that process? How can I streamline things? And that's very much the growth process, even, and the growth mindset, even when you're thinking about, and it's an interesting thing. We have this lockdown bizarre situation right now. Before lockdown, I used to kick my ass maybe 3 times a week, and I try and get down to the gym. Okay, and I'm an awful man for just sitting down and not exercising and just focusing 1000% on what I'm doing and everything else. But I know on the other hand, I can't grow physically and mentally unless I take care of my physical body. So I would go down to the gym so many times per week. And that was great, and I would do that, and it was a change away from the desk and everything else. But now I can't do that because the gyms are closed. So what can I do? Well, I say, okay, maybe I'll go and I'll get myself a treadmill or a small set of weights or something here for the office. And this is my home office. And the growth mindset in me says, that's interesting. It might cost me a year's gym membership to buy that thing, or even a 1.5 year membership. But guess what? Not only is my growth mindset telling me, okay, well, it's maybe a 1.5 year payback time, it's also telling me, but not only that, you're also saving time. The time that it took you to go from your house to the car, the expense of getting the car and driving it down to the gym, spending the time in there, waiting for the right machine, getting on it, coming back, all of that valuable time was gone. So my growth mindset is telling me, if I tweak this, if I optimize this, I can actually do more in the same amount of time and also get my health benefits and everything else, right?
Yep.
So by using this very much engineering view all the time of how can I optimize not only my own life, but how can I optimize the problems that I have? And more importantly, how can I optimize the problems that other people and other companies have? Because that's the key to finding a startup concept and growing that.
Yep.
And the message that I always come back to with people in relation to, how do you find this idea? Sometimes you're in an industry and you observe something, and then you ask some people about it and they confirm your hypothesis. But most times, the very, 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 very best ideas are when you go out and you talk to people and you literally pick up a phone to somebody you don't know in an industry and say, my name is Alan, I'm an engineer, I know nothing about your industry, but tell me what takes you most of your time during the day. What is your biggest pain point? Just tell me. I'd love to buy you coffee, I'll buy you dinner, right? And people will share their pain. And if you embrace the pain, you will make yourself capable of opening up and seeing all of these growth opportunities.
Yeah. And even you look at the Facebook, right? As you said, incremental improvements, right?
Yes.
So today you may start with just photo sharing app, but look at Facebook now. They just do so many more things, right? They have, they have news now. They have, you can buy, sell stuff there. So you just grow from there. I think once you launch and it's somewhat successful, then your customers will lead to the product innovation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a couple of questions now. Simon, you want to put some questions here while we are talking about this? So there is a question here, Alan. What kind of opportunity it will generate during Corona crisis, and how I can, So this is a very good question, right? So obviously we are going through Corona. Things are changing. How people are now working more from home. As you said, people are not going to going to the gym and so on and so forth. And we have seen already that companies like Zoom, they already have 1,000% growth, 4,000% growth, where remote working, remote communication, all that is growing. There'll be no offices, and people will be working from home. So anything, and you can add more if you ask me, anything you can have to make employees life simpler at home. For example, you may have a custom table and desk and chair which is takes less room and can be folded, so in home it's not taking all the space, right? So any of those ideas, and I think, as you said, most of the great startup ideas come with a problem. So think around, what is the problem you are having every day. For example, my biggest problem is every time I'm in the office, my daughter comes and running around the door. So maybe you want to have a door she can't see what's in. That's all, these ideas come from there. You want to add something to that?
Sure. Um, it's a really, really interesting question, Ganesh. Um, my far better half, my partner, yesterday said something really interesting. She was talking to her colleagues. She now obviously the same as everybody else. She's a manager in a government office, and she has a number of folks on her team, and she has a meeting with them just once a week on the phone to generally talk through the problems and everything else. And one of them said, I actually feel like during the day, sometimes I have nothing to do. Like I'm waiting for the next task to be assigned, or I'm waiting for the next thing to be due. And I'm anxious because I don't know what to do, right? What should I do in these cases? And that team member was expecting something like, go off to this other thing and go and do that task and assign somebody else's thing and do all sorts of work. The interesting thing that Una said was, she said, listen, if you were in the office and this happened, what would you do? And the person said, I'd probably go and make a cup of tea, or I'd go and get some water from the fountain, or I'd maybe go over to the filing cabinet and see if it needed tidying, or I might go to one of my colleagues and say, hey, I have a spare 10 minutes, can I help you out? Okay. And she said, well, do exactly the same thing. Don't be feeling, because you're working from home, and this is really important, Ganesh, don't be feeling because you're working from home and because your environment is different that you should be punishing yourself by making sure that you have to fill your life like 9,000% of the day with work. You shouldn't, because actually one of the biggest gifts to entrepreneurs and to people who are growth mindset is being able to talk to other people in situations that happen through serendipity. And by serendipity, I mean things that you bump into somebody you haven't seen for years. Hey, how are you? What are you doing? Wow, that's an interesting field. What does that involved? Oh, I had a problem in my field about that last week, and this is what we did. And they go, oh, there's a business opportunity, right? Etc.
Yeah.
etc. If we go and we talk about the Corona thing specifically for a minute and say, well, how can we, eke out opportunities from there? Well, Mahesh just said quite rightly, people are spending more time there, and businesses want to make sure that there's less interruptions from the kids, and this can only go on for so long, etc., etc., etc. But here's an interesting fact. Just because you're working from home does not mean, in every country in the world, right? This is not just Europe or the States. This is India. This is everywhere. Workers have rights, okay? And just because you're working remotely from home does not mean that your employer gives up their obligation to ensure that you're working in a safe environment. So, for example, they're responsible for your physical and your mental health when you're in your place of work, making sure that you're not harassed, making sure that the environment is comfortable, that there's no obvious physical safety things around it and everything else. So when a worker has to work remotely, how do you ensure that as an employer? And how will the employer know that they're not going to have some kind of class action suit coming to them because they didn't do enough, right? So there's all sorts of opportunities there for somebody to develop some software as a service that can scale and make you money while you're sleeping, okay? That will take care of the well-being of the employee while they're working at home during coronavirus. And there's so many different cultures and there's so many different languages that it's not like someone goes in and takes the whole pie and bang, the market's closed up, right? This stuff can work very, very well. So let's say, for example, you could say, okay, I'm going to design a piece of software as a service that checks in with people once a day or twice a day, the same way as we would have actually checked with people who maybe worked remotely out on sites, or environmental engineers out checking rivers and lakes for pollution. And so we would have a remote check-in with these people X number of times per day. But it didn't have to be physical. It would be electronic. So they'd get a text message, hey, Joe, are you doing okay? You know, and he'd answer, or she'd answer. We could have a thing that pops up on the screen that says, don't forget to get up and stretch, okay? We could have a thing that maybe you've got a piece of, maybe you're a bit of a guru on the machine learning, and you could put a thing in that says, okay, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to monitor the sounds that are going on, or even if you've got a webcam sitting in the background, I'm going to monitor what's going on in the room. And maybe what you do is you use that bit of machine learning to try and figure out the general times when Mahesh's kid starts coming in and interrupting in the room, okay? And you make sure then that the meetings that are scheduled for Mahesh are scheduled at the times that he's not going to be interrupted the most, okay? And this kind of stuff. So just by thinking things through and thinking about the problems people have, think even about lockdown itself, right? One of the issues that people have right now when they go and they meet people is they're afraid, okay? People have a fear and they're afraid, well, if I go and meet this person from this other household, how do I know that they weren't in contact with somebody else and maybe they're a carrier of the virus and I'm going to get it and I'm going to bring it home to my wife, who maybe is going to give it to her mom who's old and feeble and she's going to die, and guess what? That's my fault. Okay, it's on me, right? So maybe you could come up with an app that would detect how close people are to people in certain environments, how frequently they've been moving around in areas with others. I saw some great research out there last week that one of the universities had done, where they can detect if you have coronavirus from the signature of your breathing days before the thing actually emerges, okay? So there's so many opportunities out there, not only in healthcare, but in the welfare of employees, in the welfare and the mental well-being of your family, of your community, of helping the environment around you. There's so many things. And I think it always goes back, as Mahesh has brought up now 3 different times, it always goes back to asking questions and asking, where is that pain? You know, and not just saying, where's the pain now, but saying, where's the pain going to come? Because if lockdown stays with the world for so much longer, what's going to happen? What's the impact? What's the impact on people who run gyms, on people who run cinemas, on people who serve in shops, all these different things, and say to yourself, how can I help reduce that impact? Because you know what? There's opportunity there, not just now, but there's opportunities to be learned. There's going to be so many huge growth businesses that come out of this epidemic. It's going to be unreal. And I'm so excited to wait and see them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's take more questions here. Put more questions here. So, yeah, this is not a startup related question. Says, how do I improve if I'm copying and pasting code from Google?
I can think we can say that's a growth question. And the growth is stop going and copying and pasting code from Google. Go and learn what that code is actually doing and learn the fundamentals. And then when you do that, go and share. Go and share it with community. Because when you do that, you're growing in your mind.
and try to expand that code and do it better way. Always think like, obviously we all copy code, right? We don't remember things, but see, is there any way you can make this code better? There's always ways to make the code better. Okay, somebody
And
has written the
here's
same code. Somebody has written the same code 5 years ago in C Sharp 2.0, but now it's 9.0. Now I can take those 10 lines and I can make 2 lines, right? That's how you have to improve. And let's take let's more question here. Nancy say that's a good question actually. How do I know? Basically, she's saying, how do I know I am capable of starting a startup, right? Um, so how do you really know if you're a young person? Are you good for a startup, right? So go ahead.
my answer to that is very simple. Nobody is good at everything.
Yeah.
I'm a good engineer. I'm a good architect. I'm good at getting a big vision of things and a small vision of things. I am really good at detail. I'm good at talking, okay? But I'm not really good. And even though I know the principles, I'm not really good at all of the details of building a business. So you're not going to be good at building a startup. You will be good at using the skills that you have to help build a startup from a team. Whenever you're going to go and get investment, it is incredibly rare that someone will go off and they will invest money in one single person. Incredibly rare. Even Mark Zuckerberg did not get money invested individually. He had a team of people around him. He had a team of marketing people, sales people, engineers, operations people, finance people. It's about a team. So if you have an idea for a startup, go and talk to other people who might be useful to you in building that startup. Because the startup is not just about the engineer. The startup and the growth mindset is realizing actually what your failings are, realizing what you don't know, and losing that and giving it to other people, allowing other people to implement your vision and allowing other people to do what they do well. So
Yeah.
you are capable. Everybody is capable of doing a startup. Okay. The question is, what part of the team do you fit into? And it's very common for somebody to start off as an engineer and have a great idea for a startup. Okay. A great idea for a business, but be unable to execute it because they haven't got the business training or the business mind. So
Yeah.
you're an excellent person to start a startup as the technical founder, and then you find somebody else to be your business partner.
Yeah, and if you are young and a student and you just don't know where to even start, maybe join a startup, be a part of a startup and learn how startups are being built, how sales guys doing, marketing guys doing, and then from there, that's where you find a co-founder that can complement your, it's the skills you don't have. Your, you know, um, definitely you need sales guys, marketing guys, and you look at Mark Cuban said the best successful people who are in company startups are the one who can sell things, right? So it's not about building, as you said. All
And
right, we'll
that's
take.
really, so I'm
Yeah.
just saying that's really, really, really critical what you just said there. If you have no experience of starting a startup, the very best thing you can do, Mahesh is absolutely 100% right. The very best thing you can do is join somebody else's startup and learn from that experience.
All right, so let's take more questions. Do, do, do. What's this question here from Rakesh? Uh,
I think, Rakesh, you're correct. If you look at, there's a book that Mahesh has probably read as well called Crossing the Chasm, and it's a great startup book. And in this, the authors basically say that, look, when you're starting off, there's this like curve that you go through. And when you have a startup product idea, you have a startup product business, uh, you will always have a hard time selling to that to people who are conservative. you will always have a hard time. And if you say, oh, well, my country is conservative, well, guess what? They're not, right? Nobody's country is conservative. Every population has a curve. There's a curve in everything, and it goes like that. It's the bell curve, okay? And you will have people at one end who are super sticky and they're so conservative, they would never change their pair of shoes from the time they're born. And you'll other people who, as soon as they even hear of the next new thing, they say, I want that new thing, I want that new thing. And it's the same in business, the same in users. It doesn't matter whether it's India or whether it's Ireland or whether it's Germany or whether it's Iceland. The bottom line is that you need to position yourself to get your product in front of the early adopters. And early adopters are a very particular type of people. They are people who take risks. They're people who like the cutting edge. They're people who like new things. And they're people generally who like to help out. So don't say to yourself, oh, I'm blocked from doing something because the general nature of my country is this. It's not. There is a bell curve in everything, and there are early adopters in every single domain in every sphere of society. You just need to find those people.
Well, I disagree with that question actually. Most early adapters are young people, and India has the most young people in the world, any other country. And I've been living here in the US for 20 some years. I see Americans are least likely to adopt new thing, and they are the last. Not only they are least, they are the last. um, and even look at the results from this presidential election. They don't want to even move ahead with newer, either it's a new technologies. So I think that part of Asia, including India, you guys jump on new things right away. Like there's new phone coming, new app coming. There's more consumption there. So I disagree with that. uh, Obviously your target should be young people, college people, young mindset. Not the You cannot build a product for a startup for somebody who's 80 years old. Sure you can, but well, good luck with that. That's going to take a lot of adoption, will be hard, because those are the people you cannot change. So, once you hit a certain age, then you don't want to learn newer things unless they're solving my physical problem in hip or something.
And you better have a very quick sales cycle, because your customer base will be dead very quickly.
Yeah, yes, correct. They're not going to give you 2 years to learn and adapt. So, all right, that's it. I think we are close to the time. Simon, you have some your own questions. You guys want to jump in? May, just to say hi. I think you guys learned something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was, as always, very inspirational. And I love the anecdotes, Alan, that you included about your bike seat. I'm a huge biker myself, so I really resonated with that.
You feel the pain, May.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great point that you brought up, though, that how, your idea isn't the company. Your idea turns into the company, but they're different. And that's, I think, the most important takeaway.
Yeah.
Alan, you did mention about the challenges you face with the consultancy company, right? So I do know you own a startup. So what is it? Is it a consultancy or is it a product?
I have. Okay, so the simple answer is this. Okay, I have started and closed down and sold on a number of startups and products in my life. None of them so far have been majorly, none of them have been a Facebook. Okay, none of them have been unicorns, but they've been nice. And each time that I did it, my big failing was that I didn't have enough of a strong team on board to take care of the things that I wasn't good at. Okay, so right now I am in a new startup, and this one is building on some ideas whereby we go into, we are selling a product, so it's not a service, it's a product. It's called DataWorks, and we deal with a very specific type of data that a very specific niche, a very specific type of very large company, big pain, has pain with, and we have technology that solves this pain. and I am the architect and the engineer and the CTO and everything else. But the big thing I've learned, and the big thing that I have at this one, is I have an incredibly experienced CEO and sales team who are now on board, taking care of the marketing and the sales and the lead generation and the media generation and all of the awareness that needs to take place, because the product is only a small part of your business. The product is only a small part of your startup. There's so many other things that people don't consider, and the only way that you will grow. And right now, we've got a big chunk of investment in. We've got a valuation of over $10 million at the moment, so we're doing nicely. Yee! And we are aiming to bring this within 5 years to a valuation exceeding maybe about 150 or 250 million, and then I'll be happy. Okay, but until I do that, I want to be a quarter of a unicorn. So until I'm a quarter of a unicorn, I won't be happy. But we're heading that way, and we're only doing that. I mean, here's the one that I'm going to finish on, right? And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When I come back to you guys in 12 or 36 months, and I say, hey, we sold it, we got a massive exit, we got a valuation of this and everything else, you'll go, yay, overnight success. No. The overnight success, that was 20 years of pain to get there, right? So the biggest thing that we can do as engineers and as founders and entrepreneurs like myself and Mahesh, who have been through the mill, is to make sure that we share our experience with the younger folk, to make sure that we share our pain, and we tell you how to cut out all of the things that we wasted time on, and how to get over yourself, okay? And to learn that you don't know everything, and that success only comes when you work in partnership and work with teams.
Yeah, and then to add to that, I think if I go back, when I started C Sharp Corner, it had a actually chance to become LinkedIn at that time, and then I just didn't listen to two guys, and they were good friends, but I just didn't listen to anybody at that time. I was just like, no, I know everything, you know,
Yeah.
and that's because of that. And I feel like I should have done that. We would be much faster in a different place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was talking to a guy 3 years ago at this stage. I had offered to bring him an amazing deal. One of my clients wanted to not buy his company, but just license his technology. And he was getting a deal that was worth $250,000. And he refused because his advisor said it was worth 10 million.
Yeah.
I said, dude, you're such an idiot. And you know what? He came back to me nearly 18 months later, and he said, is that deal still open? I just laughed.
Yeah. Yeah.
These things are time bound. Opportunities do not repeat themselves. If you see an opportunity, go and grab that opportunity. It's that simple. And the other thing is, right now, and it's interesting, Mahesh, you said, you started the C Sharp Corner so many years ago. Starting C Sharp Corner now, again, would be so much easier. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it turns up the cloud. It has never been easier to start and fail and see what works and what doesn't work on the cloud. And younger folks should really try, and don't worry about failure. Just keep iterating until you get success. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is one question I want to take. This question is a very good question. It says, what are the things you don't want to share to startups not to do? I mean, there's a lot of things startups should not do. And just from top of my list is really two things I will tell you right now is don't be stubborn as a founder. Don't become a Mr. Know-it-all, all and always, I'm always right. And then second thing is, if it's not working, you got to shut it down. If you have already given enough time, don't just drag it. Move on to something else. Otherwise, I've seen a startup, they're going for 5 years and is still investing time and money and going nowhere.
Absolutely brilliant. I would totally 100% agree. To add my spin on number one, it's ask for advice. Ask people who have been there for advice. Ask people who failed. Don't go to just the people who are successful, right? Because they maybe just got lucky. Go to the people who failed and say, why did you fail? Teach me, right? And then in relation to the other one, absolutely. If give yourself a period of time, and if you're not making traction, if you're not making money, if you're not covering your costs, close down, get out.
Yep. All right, guys. Well said. Well done. Good job. And I think with that, we are 15 minutes over time limit. We are going to close this down. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Alan. That was short notice. And thank you, team. Everybody, thank you for joining us. And next Friday, we will see you again, same time. If you have more questions, sorry, we don't cover all the questions because of time. Bring your questions again next week. We have every Friday, we are here. Thank you so much. And have a
Take
good night.
care. Bye, guy.
Bye.
Bye.